Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, the 29th of May. Welcome back to the D3D4 football podcast dedicated to all things Leagues 1 and 2. And welcome to the final scheduled pod of the 2021-22 season. I can't actually believe we're at the end. I really feel like we've only just begun. And to be fair, with the turnaround, it's probably not going to be too long till we've got the new season going anyway, with it beginning at the end of July. It's the four of us today, myself, David Jenkin, Chris Stringer and Aaron Diskin. Boys, how are we doing this weekend?
Yeah, not too bad. You know, nice, relaxing one. Kept up to date with the playoffs yesterday, and obviously the Champions League in the evening. Just following the scores coming through on Twitter, and yeah, it's been a nice, relaxing one.
David, Aaron.
Yeah, like I've been saying for a good couple of weeks now, it's been nice to watch football without any pressure on it and any sort of ties on it, and I've really enjoyed the playoffs across all three divisions, especially, and yeah, I think the playoffs are just magical, to be fair, and it always seems to draw you in every year, so I've really enjoyed it.
They are a lot of fun.
Honestly, I've just enjoyed the plethora of opportunities to watch different football teams other than my own. It just seems to be there's actually some football teams out there that experience joy, and that's a novel. It's so novel.
Yeah.
You commit to Gillingham, you get what you reap. You reap your own rewards, don't you? That's the thing. You should have gone with Maidstone, I still maintain. Should have gone with Maidstone. National League now. Going to go to Oldham next year, aren't they? What joys. A reminder before we get going that this podcast is in partnership with The Big Step, which tackles football's relationship with gambling. There is an excessive presence of gambling adverts within football, and The Big Step continues to do great work to raise awareness about the dangers of gambling and the impact they can have on so many people's lives. We really have enjoyed this partnership with them during this season. Let's get going, and we're going to begin with the world's best fourth tier.
League 2.
League 2, we've got just the one game to talk about, the playoff final yesterday at Wembley, Mansfield Town against Port Vale, and it ended in a 3-0 win for Port Vale. Now, I don't know about you boys, but certainly scoreline-wise, I wasn't expecting it to be as one-sided as it looked.
No, me neither. I expected a reasonably tight affair, actually. I think both teams were looking... Yeah, they've both got strong outfits. They were both looking good in the semi-finals. Port Vale perhaps edging it going into this, but I mean, I did not expect this dominance.
No, it was a really one-sided affair. Now, I can't lie, I found it hard to fully focus on this game at the beginning because I was still recovering from watching Wrexham against Grimsby Town earlier in the day, which was the most bonkers game of football I've watched all season. It was just madness. I mean, Grimsby's game against Notts County in the previous round was nuts. And I kind of wish we were talking about this now because that 5-4 Grimsby win was just absolutely crazy. But that's for a different podcast and not for us. So we're focusing on Mansfield and Port Vale. In terms of the lineups for this game, Mansfield Town made two changes from the team that started that second leg at Northampton Town. They retained the same defence, so it was Nathan Bishop in goal. The back four in front of him remained unchanged. It had Stephen McLaughlin at left back, Oliver Hawkins and James Perchwood as centre backs. Elliot Hute was at right back. John Joe O'Toole and Stephen Quinn retained their places in midfield. They were joined by Matty Longstaff, who was an unused substitute at Northampton. Jamie Murphy was also brought in to play at the top of a midfield diamond as well, and Jordan Barrow and Reese Oates made up the front two. And Port Vale were completely unchanged from the team that started the second leg v Swindon, playing a 3-4-1-2. It was Aidan Stone in goal, Nathan Smith in the centre of a back three with Connor Hall to the left of him and James Gibbons to his right. Mal Benning was playing in the left wing-back role, David Worrell was at right wing-back, Tom Pett, Jake Taylor and Ben Garrity made up the midfield three, with Chris's favourite player Ben Garrity in a more advanced position. Kean Harrett and Jess Wilson made up the front two. It was a full one. Yeah, he loves Ben Garrity. Chris does.
Ben Garrity's season. I mean, it has just been surreal because he was so terrible for Oldham. He was just so poor, and he's gone on to become one of the best players in the league this season.
There can be good players in poor teams. It just depends on the side around, doesn't it?
Yeah, but he didn't. For me, he didn't show any sign of being a good player. That's what's amazed me. You know, I've seen players that have been misused at Oldham for 15 years, whatever long I've been watching. He just didn't show any sign that he was going to do anything like this, but he has been exceptional this year.
I just think the more and more I think about that, I think, like I said last week, I think I'm now probably coming around to the notion that it's probably because of the poor quality of players that are around him, mate. And probably some of the poor coaching as well didn't happen, because I don't think you can have such a consistently good season in such a high quality midfield if you're not a good player to start with. So I think, again, I have to hold my hands up, and I said it last week, I'll say it again. I feel like if, on the odd chance Ben Garrett is ever listening to this podcast, I apologise, Ben. But yeah,
Are you trying to tell me that Laurent Benide is not one of the finest coaches in French football?
Laurent Benide. I forgot that was everything. Tell you what, I can't wait to see what Callum William and Dylan Tharge get up to next year. So seasons they have. I think that will take you two over the edge if they end up having good years next year after what we've seen with them at Oldham. But yeah, start of this game, I actually thought Mansfield Town looked quite decent. Actually, I liked the link-up play between Stephen Quinn and Stephen McLaughlin down the left. It caused a few problems. There was very much a heart-in-mouth moment for Port Vale when a cross from the right wasn't collected. Jamie Murphy came steaming in for a header, and Aidan Stone just got his body in the way of it to prevent it. Vale grew into the game, though, and got a very excellent opener, David. In fact, it was not long after Keane Harrow had a shot that hit the post, and then they found the goal soon afterwards. And the whole move in the build-up to that first goal was fantastic, working it across up the pitch. I really loved the pass out from James Wilson out wide to Mal Benning as well, and Benning's cross deflects very nicely into the path of Keane Harrow, who stoops to head in the opening for 1-0. Very lovely goal.
Yeah, I mean, as I was watching it, I have to say, I couldn't help but I think I had to watch this one a few times because I was very confused as to why he was going that low with his head. It took me a while to realise that, he was probably stretching quite a bit there. But yeah, some really lovely play, at that point from Port Vale. And it just kind of continued on from there, didn't it really? It just sort of, I think once they got going, it just didn't really stop and they looked in the driving seat ever since.
I felt particularly in that first half, boys, and I think you might feel the same, that Port Vale's two wing-backs in Mal Benning and David Worrell were having the time of their lives in this formation because it was Port Vale playing a 3-4-1-2 against Mansfield, who were playing a very narrow diamond formation. It gave so much space to the Vale wing-backs when Mansfield full-backs were occupied elsewhere or further upfield, and you even saw that especially in the goal for 2-0 actually, which didn't come that long actually after Keane Harrow got the opener. Just a simple direct ball played over the top to David Worrell, who was in behind. Stephen McLaughlin was already so far upfield that he got caught out of place. Worrell clips the ball up to the back post. Ben Garrity gets the header. It comes off the bar, and James Wilson's in the right place to knock in the rebound to 2-0. It was just going perfectly to Port Vale at that point, wasn't it, Oren? Real dominance from them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Port Vale came out the traps flying, and it wasn't really a surprise to see for me to see that they went 2-0 up so early. And to be honest, I don't think Mansfield ever really recovered from that, and there was never really a period of where I felt like Mansfield really needed or really could settle the game down, and I think Port Vale just took the game by the scruff of the neck and just had too much kind of power for them really, and just blew them out the water. And then obviously, as we'll come onto in a second, the 2 yellows for Hawkins' dismissal to me were.
Well, let's talk about those yellows. Yeah, what are you feeling with them? Because to me, it's just a ridiculously silly pair of yellows. The first one, especially.
Yeah, I mean, the first one was bad enough, and then the second one, I think, to go in like that when you've already got a yellow, I mean, I know. Listen, I'm not a professional footballer, and I can't imagine the pressure that goes in them situations, and I understand. You're 2-0 down, you think the game's going away from you, so you're gonna become a little bit more desperate and a little bit more rash, but there's no need to make that a second challenge. And I think, obviously, I don't think it cost them the game because, quite frankly, they were already 2-0 down, and who's to say that they would have come back, but they would have had a hell of a better chance maybe, obviously, of course, with 11 men on the pitch, but it's just silly, it's really silly, and for somebody of Hawkins' level and ability and experience, you would expect better, really.
Yeah, really disappointing. Ollie Hawkins has been very good for Mansfield Town over the season. Someone who's played at the heart of defence, can be deployed as quite a direct target man option up top as well. But going out this game with 2 quick-fire yellows, picking one up in the 30th and then the second in the 35th, really annoyed me. That first one in particular really annoyed me, I think, Chris, because he's just tussling with an opponent off the ball and gets booked for it. There's just no need for that to me.
Yeah,
really silly.
I think both of the yellows were pretty silly. I mean, the first one, as you say, to try and sort of start that sort of battle in a Wembley final, it's a bit mental to me. And then once you're already on that booking, all right, it's silly, but let's move on from it. He goes and puts in a tackle like that for the second, and you're just asking for trouble, aren't you? And on big matches, you're looking out for your big players to keep their heads and to act professionally. He just did not do that.
I think it was fair to say that at that point you looked at the game at half time and thought, if Mansfield do turn this around, it's going to be an all-time classic. It has to be, with the situation that was facing them, certainly.
I think I saw you tweet that, and Port Vale were just so dominant that it was always going to be.
There was a moment for Mansfield before half time, actually. A Stephen McLaughlin free kick spilt by Aidan Stone. Rhys Oates got onto the rebound, but Connor Hall was just brilliant to clear that ball off the line and away. David, he's been one of the best January signings. They picked him up from Harrogate Town, where he'd been decent, but I don't think really a particular standout in the league. He's been incredible for Port Vale on the left side of that back three. Remarkable.
Yeah, do you know what? I think they needed that as well. I think he's really helped their drive towards those playoff places. And I think, without a player like that sitting back there, then they may not have even reached this point in the first place. Yeah, I mean, that clearance in itself was ridiculous.
And it was very close as well, massive inches.
So unbelievably close. Like when you see the goal line, the goal line technology camera, it's probably like a couple of centimeters. Like a split second later in that's a goal for them. Yeah, like very, very well defended. And very good from his part to be able to be in, even to be in that right position to be able to get that out is very good.
Absolutely. Mansfield Town did try to get back into the game during the second half, but you're asking a team to recover a 2-goal deficit at Wembley, being a man light, it's a task. I mean, very few teams are really capable of pulling off, especially against such a good Port Vale side. And Vale eventually got the third right towards the end through Mal Benning. Occasion where a deep cross from David Worrell was I love this goal, yeah. He linked it superbly on the stretch to just roll it past Nathan Bishop to score, to seal the win really in front of the Vale fans.
It was such exceptional timing. It wasn't just like a mindless stretch shot in the hope that you get a touch on it. He timed it to perfection and got such a clean connection with it. I know he's not put any force into that connection, but he's just timed it so nicely that it was always going to be on target, and then you're always asking questions of the goalkeeper with that because it's a tough save to make when it's sort of that low.
It had to be Benning, didn't it? The man who played 251 times for Mansfield Town over a number of seasons before joining them in the summer. In fact, this Port Vale team's got a few ex-Mansfield boys, actually. Aidan Stone in goal was first-choice goalkeeper at Mansfield last season for a period before he moved on. They brought in Harry Charsley in the winter as well from Mansfield to Vale. Add to that Darryl Clark, Vale's manager, who is Mansfield born and bred. And boys, you just cannot feel anything but pure delight for Darryl Clark after what he's had over the last few months. It's been a very difficult period for him, but this win is wonderful for him.
I think that post-match interview sums up the man he is, really. I mean, obviously he said he was dedicating the victory to his late daughter, but then they asked him obviously what made him come back, and he said when you've got such a good infrastructure and such caring, good owners that like show you so much love and support, and you've got a group of boys here that are like more or less prepared to die on a hill for you, then my decision was easy and I was ready to come back and I wanted to finish this job. And I'm overjoyed for him because not just with what he's gone through, I think he's showcased how good of a manager he is, and I feel like a lot of Port Vale's success has to go probably to their assistant manager as well from the period that Darryl Clark was out as well, I would say.
Absolutely.
I think he's been brilliant, like, take over the fort and just carry on the momentum, really. But listen, there's no one I wanted to see succeed more at Wembley this weekend, so it was lovely to see, and yeah.
I think it would be wrong to not give credit to, or more credit to the owners at Port Vale. I mean, when you look at how they were under Smurthwaite, a couple of years ago, they were really in dire straits. They were becoming a basket case club, and the Shanahans have come in, totally restructured the club. They've been incredibly transparent in the most with their fans, listen to what the fans want, and really put together a model of what football club ownership should look like.
I find it really interesting as well because when you think about the four sides who are coming up from League 2 into League 1, you would tend to look at the team promoted to the playoffs as being the weakest of the lot, the one with the most work to do. But I feel quite good about this Port Vale side already for the next season.
And with the footballing structures in place,
Absolutely,
they're in a position to grow quite well.
And I love that they're doing it with a few homegrown lads as well. Nathan Smith in the heart of defence, James Gibbons out on the right. Tom Connell hasn't even been able to feature in the back half of the season. We know how good he could be as midfield as well. There's a really nicely built team already, David, to be competitive in League One next year, I have to feel.
Yeah, I don't think this will be a team that will easily go down if they were to do so. I think, they're one of those sides as well that if they can keep hold of a couple of the players that I think have been really key for them this season, then I think they'll do a good job. I'm not going to make the mistake of, pushing a team down before the season starts, especially not with the record we have with, Cambridge United last season and what they managed to do this season. So I think I'm going to hold with bated breath.
I'm giving you responsibility to picking our bottom three when it comes to the 120.
That's absolutely fine. I'll give it a good go. No liability otherwise, but
I already know he's going to put Burton in there. I already know he's going to make that one of the four. He's going to make that one. Reflect on Mansfield Town. A season that ends very difficultly. I completely agree with you, Aaron. It just wasn't their day at all. Paul Vale just completely got the better of them, blew them away. Ended up getting a 3-0 win that looked probably more dominant than we were probably expecting it to be. But where do you think Mansfield Town go from here, Aaron?
The thing is, I think they took a gamble this year, and it's obviously not paid off. They brought in some very sort of high profile players for this division. Like look at Jamie Murphy and Matty Longstaff especially, and I know. Especially on social media, a lot of Mansfield fans weren't happy at all with Matty Longstaff's performance yesterday, and I have to agree. I think he was more or less invisible throughout the whole game, and I don't know whether that was the work of the likes of like Ben Garrett in that restricting him, but so I think they're gonna have to invest again, but I don't know whether. It's a difficult one because I don't know whether the sort of high profile, they've tried to do the high profile route now for a couple of seasons, and obviously in the end it's not reaped the rewards. But listen, like I said before we even came into the podcast, these two teams, Port Vale and Mansfield, were the two better footballing sides that I've seen this season at our place anyway. So I think I expect them to be up and around there again with Nigel Clough, but they're going to have to reinvest again, and I think maybe staying away from the route of like high profile players and maybe getting some a little bit more younger sort of.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the youth.
Gems sort of way might be a way forward, but I don't think they'll struggle, and I think they'll be back up and around just because of obviously Nigel Clough's a great manager and stuff, but I think the gamble this year is not really paid off for them in the end.
I do wonder at what point. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of their ownership structures, so I might be, going off on completely the wrong way here. But at what point do the owners get a bit tired of this? It's 4 or 5 seasons at least that they've been investing quite a sum of money on the playing squad.
This is the closest they've come.
This is the closest they've come, but they've still fallen short. And in previous seasons they've fallen short by a greater margin than this. At some point they either give up or they have to change their approach. And I think, Aaron, I think you're right. They've been gambling a lot of money on bigger name players that haven't really worked out for them in the way that they would like. I mean, for me, with the money that they spend, they should have been up around the automatics the last few seasons.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And I agree with your point on relatively younger players needed to the future. I think, Aaron, as well. Stephen Quinn isn't going to be around forever, or John Joe O'Toole the same. They've both been very good this season, but you can't rely on them for the future. And I almost kind of look at that Mansfield team and some of the players in that and thought, if you were to get over the line this season, you'd probably need to have moved them on, because you're looking at players who are good for League 2 level, but not really going to carry that into the League 2 and the League 1 even for the next couple of seasons.
And that's always a real difficulty if you don't have a handful of spine players, of solid players that you can take up to the league with you above, or actually vice versa. If you're being relegated and have a group that you can play with in the league below, you're always going to struggle. You need some sort of continuity.
Yeah, absolutely. That concludes the League 2 season. Boys, how would you say this League 2 season's been? I mean, the promotion battle, David, we've been fully engrossed in it all campaign, really, haven't we?
it's just the most ridiculous season in the world, isn't it? Like, I have to say, I followed probably about 10 or 11 leagues this year, like not just the English ones, but some across the continent as well. And League Two for me is easily the most entertaining season that we've had this, like, for me in a long time. Like, we often say, and talk about, not really having an idea or having, in some leagues you have some sort of idea who's going to finish where. I had absolutely no clue, even right down to the final day, who was going to finish where, and even that madness that happened on the final day with Bristol Rovers is just, there is no other league like it in the world that has that sort of drama.
That Bristol Rovers thing goes down in history, really. Going up on goals scored.
It is one of the great ends to a season, isn't it?
Absolutely incredible. We're going to have a look at some of the managerial appointments that have happened over the last couple of weeks. I mentioned a couple last week that we were going to go in a bit more detail into this time, and there's a couple more that have happened as well. I'm going to start with AFC Wimbledon, David, who have announced the appointment of Johnnie Jackson, the former Charlton Athletic manager. He originally had a very successful term as a caretaker at the club, was appointed permanent manager. Season really, I'd say, probably pitted out, not the way Charlton probably wanted to, and he was moved on. Charlton is still looking for another manager at the moment. I think there's talk that it's probably going to be Ben Garner from Swindon. I don't think that's been confirmed yet, but that'd be quite an interesting move to see. But Johnnie Jackson have gone to AFC Wimbledon. David, I think they've missed a trick not appointing him as caretaker, because as caretaker at Charlton, he won 9 of his 13 games. And Wimbledon under caretaker would probably be winning the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, he had a ridiculous record, didn't he? But if I'm honest, I think he'll do better at Wimbledon. Maybe that's... Yeah, I just think that he'll do better here because I think I just feel he'll have more freedom in this role than maybe at Charlton.
The expectations are different as well, aren't they?
I think so, yeah. So there's less pressure on him, but I think, he kind of had less pressure when he was in that sort of interim caretaker role. And I suppose maybe the pressure got to him, or maybe it was the higher ups, but I feel like Sandergaard has a lot of, from what I understand, he has a lot of say in a lot of managerial decisions. So I think Wimbledon and the way they're structured and the way they work, I think he'll probably have a better time there. And just in general, I think actually like the way Wimbledon are structured as a club, they've kind of got the base. They just need someone to take them forward here.
Out of the 4 sides relegated, Chris, Doncaster, AFC Wimbledon, Gillingham and Crewe, who do you think is best placed to make an immediate return, do you reckon?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd just like to apologise for the bell noise because the cat's playing with one of his toys in the background. That's all right then. It's a tough one. I mean, I like this appointment for Wimbledon. I mean, people talk about, his record as a caretaker manager, and all right, he did have a better record for that. But actually, on the permanent record, he was still coming out with a 30% win record, which, for Charlton looking up isn't superb in League One, but for maybe a level lower, that's actually not too bad for Wimbledon, and you'd be looking at building on that closer to the 50% mark in League Two. It's a tough one. You'd think a club like Gillingham should be in a place to build next season, but equally they've got some ownership issues, which I'm sure David can talk about more properly than me. So that will make it a bit of a challenge in League Two. You feel Wimbledon have perhaps got the nice structures in place now. They've got the new stadium. They're starting to build the actual footballing structures now. They've got a good new manager in. I'd be cautiously optimistic if I was one of their fans.
Yeah, I feel like Wimbledon out of the 4, I'd feel most confident about doing. You have to feel some of their talents are going to move on because they've got so many. I don't really want to see Ayub Asal or Jack Redoni playing in League Two because I think they're much, much better than that level. And there's certainly clubs higher up that could be pursuing them. But I completely agree with you, Chris. I think Johnnie Jackson, I like this appointment at AC Wimbledon. I'm quite excited about what the Dons could do next season in League Two, certainly. And we'll see what they can build. I'd like to see a bit more experience put into that side because it was an incredibly young team that was playing in League One last season, certainly. Aaron, an appointment at Forest Green Rovers to replace Rob Edwards is Ian Burchnall, who has left National League side Notts County to move to Forest Green. Burchnall is someone who has had a fascinating career so far. He didn't have a playing career at professional level. He's someone who began coaching life at the University of Leeds, worked later on in academies of Leeds United and Bradford City, and Burchnall made the move out to Scandinavia back in 2012 to become Brian Dean's assistant at a club called Sarpsborg in Norway, and he later became assistant to, and I'm going to get this name right, Kjell Jonvret at Viking, and took up the managerial role in November 2016 when Jonvret departed. Burchnall would end up being successor to Graham Potter, who we all know as the Brighton manager, when he stepped down to his time at Östersunds in Sweden, came to an end. And he was in that role between June 2018 and July 2020 when he stepped down and made the return back to England. He's been at Notts County since March 2021 and has held the head coach role there. He earned 2 consecutive 5th place finishes in the 2021, the 21-22 season, losing out in the playoffs on both occasions, and he now makes the move to the League Two champions Forest Green Rovers as a successor to Rob Edwards. Burchnall, to my understanding at Notts County, was someone who a lot of people looked at and thought was very innovative, but there's also some who felt he wasn't really living up to the expectation put around him. But for me, Aaron, this still was a very Forest Green appointment, quite a savvy feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a very unconventional route into English football, isn't it? And like you say, I think this could be. I'm probably on the air of. I'm a little bit sceptical just on the fact that I know he's done relatively well at Notts County, but he's got them into the playoff picture on back-to-back seasons. But I do think there is a big gap in quality between the National League football and League One football, of course, and whether he can sort of bring his managerial style and level up to that level of football will be interesting for me. But we know Dale Vince at Forest Green likes to do things differently and likes to experiment with different things, and I think this is a bit of an experiment. And again, he needs time, but. If I was a Forest Green fan right now, I'd be optimistic, but also I'd be a little bit sceptical because I think he's going to need time. But obviously, if we've seen the likes of we mentioned before, Graham Potter had a similar sort of route in football, and he's a fantastic manager. So it could go down that route, and if it does go down that route, then Forest Green have got something to look forward to. But I'm just still a little bit sceptical, really.
It's interesting, isn't it, Chris? Because he's not going to have, unfortunately, all of the squad that Forest Green won the league title with. We've already seen Ebro Adams move on to Cardiff. Kane Wilson's move is pretty much inevitable, potentially even to Watford to link back up with Rob Edwards again. Some of the other players in this side can move on as well. I think Nicky Cann's out of contract as well. You're losing your 2 key wing-backs and one of your big midfielders there, for instance. Forest Green have got a bit of a rebuild to do, I think, to be competitive League One next year.
Yeah, this is always the thing when you're promoted from League Two. Obviously, you build a squad with such quality that you've got, League One and actually indeed Championship clubs, starting to pick away at it like, vultures looking over a squad or something. But I mean, I think this is a good managerial appointment, actually. I know the National League's a different quality to League Two, but he's come away with a good win record. Sorry, the cat's trying to climb up my chair. He's come away with a good win record. And the National League it's a different kettle of fish to try and get promoted from than actually to have a solid League One season. So I'd be happy, I think, as a Forest Green fan with this appointment. And I'd back in to actually build a decent squad, especially with the director of football that they've got at Forest Green, who's done an excellent job in the past for them.
David, any feelings?
Yeah, I mean, I feel similarly. I suppose they're obviously with Rob Edwards, that was his first job, and I feel like over the last season or two, they've been pretty good at putting someone in place, and as the other guys have kind of alluded to, when you've got a director of football and you've got that footballing structure, I think it almost to me echoes sort of like an MK Dons type setup where you've got somebody who can kind of, it doesn't really matter too much who you get in as long as they play a similar kind of structure or style of football, because the director of football and the people behind the scenes are still kind of churning things around, which seems to be quite a successful way of playing at the moment. But yeah, I think you guys are right. It's probably going to take a bit of time for them to get a team that's going to be properly competitive, but I think it's just a case of wait and find out now and see how they perform in the transfer window.
Yeah, absolutely. Another appointment to talk about is one at Aaron's favourite club, Salford City. We've seen Gary Bowyer depart Salford City to be replaced by someone not happy with that. We've seen Gary Bowyer come in at Salford City to be replaced by Neil Wood. Neil Wood's a manager who's continuing this notable trend we're seeing from a number of clubs now about teams bringing in a manager who has a very strong coaching background, yet doesn't have a very high amount of managerial experience yet. Since retiring as a player, Neil Wood's taken up a number of various coaching roles within Aston Villa's academy, and he made the return back to his hometown Manchester in 2014, working at Manchester United's academy again through various youth levels. He's held the under-23 manager role at Manchester United since 2019, overseeing a period of competitive progress in both the Premier League 2 at a domestic level and the UEFA Youth League at a continental level, and all the while seeing quite a large number of their academy players progress into the Manchester United first team and make their debuts at senior level. Neil Wood's appointment was announced on the 20th of May, making him the successor to Gary Bowyer at Salford City. First of all, Chris, Bowyer leaving Salford. Any feelings around that?
Not many, to be honest. I didn't particularly rate him as an appointment. He didn't do what he was trying to do, and Salford City did what they do best by sacking him. You know, it's a bit written on the wall, and I think I tweeted out about it when he was appointed. You know, Salford are in real danger of collapsing here. You know, as a manager, would you really want to touch them when there's a good chance you won't get more than 4 or 5 months in charge? And so, you know, I like going for coaching staff. Oldham did it with Frankie Bunn, and I think it was a reasonably successful appointment, bar the politics that went on with that. But I think it's actually more of a symbol that they're going to find it more and more difficult to sign established managers because they've got such a bad record for keeping them on.
I feel quite good about this Wood appointment personally. I completely agree with you. I don't think Gary Bowyer, it just never really inspired me. I always looked at the Salford
He's
team.
never been inspired.
Well, that's the thing. You think about just time at Bradford as well. We had a lot of expectation with them and just really disappointed with them. And I feel like that Salford team, which always had enough to be competitive, be in the top 7, be floating around as promotion places, but then looked at Bowyer and thought, are you really the right man to get them over the line?
And they spend so much money. I know I bang on about this, but they spend so much money in League Two. And it's why it slightly frustrates me when the likes of Gary Neville go on about, you know, football being broken. Salford are part of this issue, in my opinion. The extent to which they try to buy League Two. And if you can't get promoted by spending that much money and bringing in players on 4 or 5 grand a week in the 4th division, you know, you've really got to be looking at yourself carefully.
Aaron, how are you feeling about this with Neil Wood? I quite like that they're going something different. I think that they're trying to mirror what we saw with Rob Edwards at Forest Green, going to someone who certainly has a strong coaching background, not a high amount of managerial experience yet. I'm a little bit encouraged by what this could be, but again, you've got to be able to just feel confident. He needs to be given the time if this doesn't work out next year.
I feel a little bit similar to, I probably felt a little bit more positive about it, but the Lincoln appointment of Mark Kennedy rings a few bells with this one in terms of, like, obviously coming from somewhere like Manchester United's academy, he will know how, like, a nice way to play football, and, like, I think the footballing DNA at Salford will fit him well, but I'm a little bit worried, if I'm being honest, that this might just kind of, for a lack of a better expression, this might just be a little bit of a sort of a job for the boys sort of thing, because, like, obviously it's really different working in the academy to then going into men's football. And look, I'd love to be proven wrong, because like we were saying, Salford have spent so much money and so much time in investing in this squad that they need to get it right sooner rather than later, because I think we were talking about, obviously, Mansfield changing up before. I'd be sort of semi-worried as a Salford fan if they don't get it right this year, or they don't come close this year. How long before the class of 92 are gonna start getting bored and you know?
And Peter Lim is there, I think, is the big one with Salford. He's the sort of silent investor, but he owns, I think, half the club, or 40%. And at some point he will want to return on this investment, be it monetarily or be it through the stature of the club improving. And I am really, really worried for Salford fans that this is going to end up in tears. It's going to end up with one or several of their owners, you know, getting bored and leaving the club and leaving a financial black hole there, and then collapsing back into non-league. You know, I am seriously concerned that they're going to end up in real dire straits.
It has felt that way for a while.
Yeah,
I had some really good times covering Salford at uni and stuff, and but I feel like they're getting away from the main sort of initial points that Gary Neville said when he first bought the club. They're getting away from that sort of idea of what they wanted to do with the club now, and I think they're now sort of becoming I wouldn't say the sort of like not the joke club, but like there's always running jokes that it's between Oldham and Salford for who sacks more managers in a season, and that isn't a good look at all.
It's not.
You know, that isn't a good look, especially like if you're trying to own a football club. To me, owning a football club is all about time and stability, and I don't think Gary Neville and the lads have shown that to anyone really. So I think there needs to be a real big culture sort of shift at Salford behind the scenes before they can get any proper success on the field.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head. What are they trying to achieve here? Because, you know, originally the ethos of the club was to develop a community club into a professional club, be something that the community can be proud of, with the aim of becoming a championship football club. And it feels like it's moved away from that to become almost a vanity project.
Well, I don't know if you've ever had the chance to see them Class of 92 out of the league. It's a series that you can find on some of the Sky programmes. I remember I've managed to see all the series, and the thing that stands out to me, they're still struggling to find training facilities. For a lot of their time in the National League, and even at the start of their Football League days, they were just training in regular parks, trying to rent facilities out. They haven't got a training set of their own.
They were renting Manchester United facilities for a while at extortionate rates, I seem to remember.
Yeah, really good. We mentioned Oldham, and we'll get on to Oldham actually, because there's Oldham relevance in this final appointment we're going to talk about here. Pete Wild has been appointed the Barrow manager, having left SC Halifax Town. Now, Pete Wild, if anyone isn't aware, is Chris Stringer's favourite human being. He absolutely adores him. He's an Oldham boy. He's born in, is it Royton? I want to say it right.
Yeah, he's a Roytonian, that's where I'm from.
It's Royton, exactly. A lifelong fan of Latics who he got the chance to work with in Oldham's academy setup, having previously worked as a development officer at the Manchester Football Association. He'd been with Oldham for about 10 years in a variety of roles before he became the caretaker manager of the club after Frankie Bunn was sacked. He had 8 games with Latics as a caretaker before Paul Scholes, and I say very briefly, came in as Latics boss as well. And during those 8 games as caretaker, there was a very notable one down at Craven Cottage, a 2-1 win over Fulham, who were in the Premier League at the time in the FA Cup. That image of him at full time, jumping up and down the touchline, lives in my head. I can't lie. I absolutely adore it. It's one of my favourite games. And Wild took up the caretaker role again after Paul Scholes left, and it quickly became a permanent role at Oldham, and he saw out the 2018-19 season as Oldham manager. He spent the last 3 years as the manager of SC Halifax Town, the National League, where he has just done brilliantly to convert the Shaman into a team that have earned playoff finishes in 2 of their 3 seasons as well. His last game was a 2-1 defeat home to Chesterfield in a playoff eliminator earlier in the week, and it became pretty clear pretty quickly that he was getting moved back to the EFL, and he's gone to Barrow, Chris. How good is this appointment for Barrow?
I really think it's superb. I saw some Barrow fans on Twitter a bit confused by this one, not recognising the name. He is exceptional, in my opinion. He, as I say, came through the youth system in terms of coaching at Oldham. And he was, I think, the under-16 manager at the time we sacked Frankie Bunn, but because all the backroom staff had been sacked as well, associated with our ownership issues, it was basically he was the last one left in the building. So it was, all right, Pete, you know, we need a manager. Can you give it a go? And by the way, you're going to Craven Cottage next week. And we went to Craven Cottage, got the 2-1 win, and he was sipping wine with Claudio Ranieri after the match. But yeah, he's gone on to Halifax, and if I'm not mistaken, Halifax were actually, you know, they were happy with a mid-table finish. You know, they were looking down rather than up, and he has totally transformed the you know, both on the pitch and off the pitch. He's built up some good structures at the club, and they've been looking up ever since. And actually, he's been linked for a couple of years, and I think he's been wanting to try and get something with Halifax, either get them promoted or whatever. And he's probably now taken them maybe as far as he could, and deservedly got to move up to League Two. And I'm glad he's gone for somewhere like Barrow, one of the, no offence to Barrow fans, but one of the smaller clubs in League Two, because I think it will give him a bit more freedom to do what he wants and set up the structures he likes. You know, one of the reasons he didn't take the Oldham job permanently is because he was concerned with interference, and I think actually that can sometimes build a bit of paranoia with any interference then after leaving Oldham. So I think that's a really good move for him, really good move for Barrow, and I expect him to do really quite well for them.
I don't know about you, Aaron or David, but I'm feeling really excited about this. Barrow I think as a group of players, Barrow should have done a lot better than the 22nd place finish they have. I look at some of the people in there, Jordan Stevens, Robbie Gotts, could play some very nice football if used correctly, and I quite like the idea of mixing Pete Wild's style of play with this Barrow squad into next season. Could be really exciting.
Yeah, I think for me, I talked last week on the podcast whenever the week was when we mentioned about obviously Phil Brown leaving and where they needed to go from there, and I said they needed to sort of get a different like footballing approach and a different
anyone other than Phil Brown.
Yeah, a bit of a different footballing DNA, and I think this is the perfect route down there. I think obviously some of the football I remember in that caretaker spell that he got us playing, and obviously it helped that we probably had two of the most informed strikers in the league at the time, to be honest, with Callum Lang and Samson Ridge at the time. But he played some wonderful football, and then he's kind of transformed that style onto the Halifax team. And I just think this, like Chris said, this is a really exciting appointment, and he's one that I think will be given time to build his squad. And yeah, if I'm a Barrow fan, I'm very happy, and I think if we can take our Oldham tinted glasses off for a second and look at this one.
You never take those glasses off, you two. They're always there.
Well, I did get some, because I think when we come on to the questions, James asked a question about
this. Yes, he did.
And over 3 years at Halifax, he has a 47% win record.
That's very good.
And I think at Oldham, over his two spells, it was something like 48-49, including a win over Fulham. So he's got good coaching ability. The players have always spoke well of him. And, you know, I think Barrow's a good club, so I think he can settle in quite nicely there.
Well, I think we'll get onto those questions, actually. Really good to have a talk about those managers, but let's get into some of the questions that were given to us. And I'm going to start with that one from James Richards. And David, I'm going to come to you, because I think Chris and Aaron are going to be very try to not be impartial with this answer that comes. Of the new managerial appointments in D3D4, you've got Pete Wild to Barrow, Mark Kennedy to Lincoln City, Ian Burchnall to Forest Green Rovers, Johnnie Jackson to AFC Wimbledon, Neil Wood to Salford City. Which one out of those excites you the most, David? And the follow-up question was Ben Garner to Charlton. Would that be a good fit? Which one of those current appointments excites you most, David?
I think for me, it's the same as kind of what I alluded to earlier. I think it's Jackson to Wimbledon. Just on the basis that I think he'll have more freedom with Wimbledon, that I don't think that managerial appointments necessarily get at Charlton. There's certainly different expectation levels there for him. And I think he'll perform better under maybe a bit less pressure from the higher ups. Although for the same sort of reason, I don't actually think that Ben Garner would fit at Charlton. Because I think he's had probably quite a bit of freedom at Forest Green, and I feel like the constraints that he might have at Charlton, I just don't think it would do him any good. I personally feel that he'd be better off staying and sticking with Swindon and trying to push again for promotion next year, as opposed to moving on. I don't know what anyone else thinks, but that would be where I stand on it.
Anyone else have any thoughts on Garner?
Well, actually, writing before, I thought he would make a good fit, but actually you do raise a good point there, Dave, that perhaps he wouldn't get the freedom that he might want at Charlton. But, you know, having said that, 50% win record over the last season can't be ignored.
I feel like I'd rather work under Morthuni than Sondergaard, by the sounds of what I've heard from Sondergaard at the moment, though. Potentially. Aaron, Chris, I will ask you, which of those managerial appointments excites you most?
Pete Wild.
Is it really? I wonder why. Aaron?
For me, I'm going to stick to what I said last week. I think the Mark Kennedy appointment at Lincoln is the one that excites me the most, if I'm being honest. I think just hearing what he said in his press conference about how he wants to like transform the playing side and the playing style of that Lincoln side and like his ideas, I feel like given time, that this could be a really exciting appointment for the Imps, and I'm really excited to see how he gets on. Yeah, and I think he can use his Manchester City links quite well, and I think that they should have a decent summer in terms of signings, and yeah, it'll be nice to see how it all comes together.
Yeah, there's the ones I like. I like the Johnnie Jackson one as well, but for me, I've got to go Chris, Pete Wild, and Barrow. I'm so happy to see Pete Wild back in the EFL because it's been a long time coming. Delighted.
And he so thoroughly deserves it, but all credit to him for actually going down to the National League, because I think I seem to remember at the time when he left Oldham, there were a couple of League Two clubs that were looking at him. But he went for Halifax, I think in part because it was fairly close to where he lives in Oldham, but also because it was a club that he could work with and a community club that he could work with. And I think
he could still stay in Manchester being with Barrow, can't he?
Well, I think their training facilities are still in Manchester. So, but it's it's a 2-hour commute up to Barrow. So
match days,
yeah. So it's not too difficult, certainly not in footballing terms.
Okay. Question from Ian Fairhead: who was the furthest out with their pre-season predictions, and what is their excuse for being so far out?
I can't remember.
We're trying to remember what we even put to the predictions. I know we got Plymouth Argyle very badly wrong, and we blame James on that.
I can't remember what I predicted, but as with all the issues in my life, I blame doing a PhD on it.
You could blame Antarctica on it if you tried hard enough.
Yeah, whatever. Pick one of them. I've been distracted.
David, are there any predictions you can remember doing at the start of the season for yourself or with us that you thought, oh, we didn't do well there?
I mean, I think all of us have kind of really messed up with the Cambridge United one.
Oh, for sure.
We all had them finishing bottom, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
I'm trying to think as well. I mean, Plymouth we messed up with badly. I think Ipswich is probably another one, actually.
Yep.
I think we all had them winning the league, actually. In our pre-season prediction, we had them top, and obviously they finished about 12th or so.
I will hold my hand up and say I was there insistent Bradford will win the league under Derek Adams, and that's completely backfired.
So I think there's definitely a few stinkers in there, but I think overall I don't think we did too bad. I don't think we did too badly. Like, based on pre-season expectation, I think we were quite alright.
I called Sunderland.
Yeah.
We put Sunderland 10th when we did our League 1-1, Chris, if you remember it now.
I think I put them 6th, and I think they go up through the playoffs.
You always think they were going to do that. That's what you were doing.
Hey, no. Previous seasons I'd put them first, so...
As the newcomer to this podcast, I'd like people to reserve the judgment on me.
Aaron had Oldham winning League 2. You didn't see that.
I did
not. He made no predictions, so technically he's the furthest.
He is the furthest off.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, he didn't predict.
I would like to be judged on my pre-season predictions, please.
I've got my own personal one I put together here, and I've got Lincoln 2nd. Charlton 4th. Oh dear.
Oh,
Plymouth 21st.
I think I have wrote my stuff.
Salford 4th.
All I will say in terms of predictions is I'll keep referring to it because obviously I feel a bit smug. I completely called the League 2 playoff.
That is why Aaron is in charge of a 1-24s over this summer. And he will take full responsibility for how they end up.
I hope so as well.
So just direct any of these questions to Aaron next year.
Absolutely. There's a question here from Vital Wednesday saying who will win the sack race in League 1, League 2 next year. I don't think it's a race you want to win. Well, let's be real here.
It's Salford, isn't it?
I wasn't sure if he meant first sacking or most sacking, so obviously I went for Salford either way.
Do you genuinely think Neil Wood's going to be first sacked?
It just wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't.
I kind of wonder if Scott Brown goes the wrong way. I don't think it will. I kind of feel quite good about it. But if Scott Brown goes the wrong way at Fleetwood, that could be over quite quick. I don't know if anyone else feels the same about that.
It's always with Salford because they spend so much money. The expectations are always so wildly high that if they're even 2 or 3 places off where they want to be, the manager gets sacked.
Well, I seem to recall Gary Bowe didn't start this season that well, and they did stick with him to the end.
I mean, there's always Joey Barton if he gets himself in trouble again.
I mean, that's always a good bet, isn't it?
That's always a fairly okay assumption, right?
I still can't wait to Bristol over Fleetwood. Barton v Brown. That's going to be so good.
That's just a boxing match to kick it all off.
Yeah, I still think we should bring Paolo Di Canio back for these things.
Well, Swindon need a new manager as Garner goes, so why not? Why not? Question from Mark L. In the entire 72, which manager has done the best job when you take into account the resources they had at their disposal? I don't mean Marco Silva comfortably winning the league as his squad cost more than the private jets. We could do the entire 72, but I'd also like to get one to just D3D4 as well.
How much does a private jet cost?
Whatever Fulham's squad cost, I guess.
I've just done it for the 72 when I answered this question. And I went with Nathan Jones.
Yeah, it is a good pick.
Because I think his squad cost him like $4.5 million, which in the context of, Fulham apparently spending more than the private jet, whatever a private jet costs. I think Bournemouth was spending £190 million or something. So to be up with a fighting chance of getting to the Premier League, alright, they fell away in the playoffs. That's exceptional to me.
Yeah, I agree with Luton as well. To be fair, just on the financial side, and I'm sure there was a graphic before the last game of the season that Sky put out. I'm sure they were like the second lowest play. I'm sure it was the second lowest playing squad.
I think it cost them $1.5 million to assemble their squad.
That's the one.
Very impressive.
And to get where they got this season based on them figures is miraculous. So yeah, I'd have to go Nathan Jones too.
What about League 1 and 2? A pick for League 1, a pick for League 2, boys?
Well, I was a good boy, and I considered this across the entire 72, but with a focus on D3D4. So for me, it's Matt Gray at Sutton. I think with the resources they have at their disposal, I think they've an incredibly impressive season, and I would imagine that's another pick that we probably didn't get right in our preseason predictions. But I'd imagine they have one of the lowest budgets, if not the lowest amount of resource at their disposal in that league, and what Gray has been able to do there has been nothing short of miraculous in some respects.
Absolutely. For League 1, I felt like I could give another mention to Accrington Stanley under John Coleman. They just continue to...
Every season.
It's almost kind of felt like a given now, just see Accrington in the middle of the table, but you've really got to take into account where that club has been, where they come from, what they've done, the work Andy Holt has done. You've seen the work he's developing on the stadium right now. They're really transitioning into being a very solid League 1 outfit. It's fantastic.
Yeah, putting all the structures in place. I mean, I think people like Cambridge, Mark Bonner, that's, we had them bottom in our predictions.
I think everyone had them bottom, really, if we're being truthful.
Yeah. And to finish 14th is really, really respectable, I think.
Absolutely. I've got questions about how the promoted sides are going. I'm going to mash them all together. The 4 promoted sides coming out of League 2, Forest Green Rovers, Exeter City, Bristol Rovers and Port Vale. How do we think they'll fare in League 1 next season, boys? Because League 1 for me is 2 divisions in one now. You're going to have maybe half the league who realistically could compete to promotion, and then the other half who are likely going to be involved in a relegation battle. David, how would you feel about those 4 sides heading into League 1 next year?
I don't have too many worries, if I'm honest. I imagine their squads are going to get completely vultured apart. But I think as long as they can keep hold of some of their key players, I don't suppose... I think there could be 4 teams that are already in League 1 that have a better chance of going down than they do.
I think I'd agree with that, actually.
Just based on last year, I think, obviously there is recruitment to happen across the league, and this is the time to do that. But I think based on, I don't think it just even based on resource. I think just based in general, I think there are probably 4 teams. If you look at the way that league ended last year, there's 4 teams that, for me, that probably have a better chance of going down than they do.
I think of the 4 promoted from League 2, I think Bristol Rovers are probably the weakest.
I think they could do best, actually.
Do you think?
I feel like Forest Green are going to lose a number. I think Exeter, with their young talent, might lose a few. Port Vale, maybe not quite to strength of Bristol Rovers. I feel quite good about them under Barton.
Well, that's fair enough. But I think either way, actually, I agree with Dave. Though I think there's probably 4 teams in League 1 already that are weaker. I think actually the quality of League 2 is such that these are coming out with a real bit of strength about them.
Aaron, is there anyone you feel out of the 4 might have maybe the toughest season or could have the best season out of the 4?
I feel like to have the best season, I think Exeter will have the best season. I think just because I think I look at their, obviously it depends who gets taken away, but I look at their squad and I think there's a lot ready-made League One players already in that team. I think like you look so a big one for me again. Obviously, I'm not doing it on purpose because he's ex-Oldham, but I actually really like him as a football player. I think Tim Dieng is a brilliant football player, and I think he can make that transition up quite comfortably. And I think they've got a lot of sort of players that are sort of more than capable to play at the level. So I think Exeter will do quite well. And when I say well, I don't think they'll be anywhere near the playoffs or anything like that, but I think they'll be comfortable enough to survive quite comfortably, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to follow that with another question, boys, and this is aimed particularly at Chris and Aaron, I imagine. How do we think Stockport will fare in League Two next season?
Oh, I think they'll have a strong season. I mean, their squad already is exceptional. For those listening, Stockport are a bit of a second club for me because my dad grew up watching them. Their squad is exceptional. I mean, I've spoken to some of their fans and they're pretty confident that in the not too distant future they'll be looking at being a championship club. Yeah. They've developed their stadium now. They've got really good facilities. They've put a good footballing structure in place. And I think their squad is already at mid-table League Two level, and I think they'll be building on that.
I think it might be slightly better than mid-table League Two, to be honest.
Listen,
if Sutton can get close to going back to back, I think Stockport could realistically look at it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they will be looking for another promotion. I think that will be their aim. And when I say they're mid-table League Two, I'm being on the safe side, if you like. And the money that they've got at their disposal now, I think they'll be looking to go up again.
I genuinely am so excited to see Stockport back in the Football League, by the way, because it's been 2011, was it? Last time they were there?
Yeah, it's 11 years. I remember in 2008 watching them at Wembley beat Rochdale in the League Two playoff finals. From a personal perspective, it was really, really nice to see them get promoted.
Yeah, really like Edgeley Park as well. Very good old school ground, isn't it?
And they've got a massive electric scoreboard now.
They do actually, yeah, above that away end.
And the cheadle end's been done up. It's really nice.
It is really good. Does anyone have any thoughts about who might be joining them? We've got the second playoff semi-final today. Solihull Moors against Chesterfield. Grimsby Town are already going to the final. Does anyone have a preference who they want out of those three to get promoted with Stockport, or do they have thoughts on who might be?
I think it'll be Grimsby. But also, I'd like it to be Grimsby as well. I like their stadium. And I think after the difficulties they had in League Two and the way that they got relegated, it would be nice to see them go up again. It would give me, as an Oldham fan, a little bit of hope as well.
I think it'll be Chesterfield to win and then Chesterfield to win again. I think Chesterfield.
The playoff master has spoken.
Yeah,
Chesterfield are in the Football League, boys. Congratulations.
I think Chesterfield are going to do it, and I think we're talking about teams that probably deserve to be in the Football League, and along with Stockport, I think Chesterfield probably deserve to be back there, and I just think they'll just have enough quality. I think just about, yeah.
David, Gills fan, who'd you look at and think, do you fancy a trip to Solihull to Birmingham Airport?
Oh, I mean, kind of no, just because I feel like there's a couple of players that I'd want to poach from their team. But,
I think there's lots of them that would poach from them.
I mean, for sure, especially considering our squad, or lack of. I think, to be honest with you, I was going to go for Solihull Moors just to be different, but I think I would probably say Chesterfield is probably where I would safely put my ideas for promotion.
Actually, I'm gonna change mine to I'd like it to be Chesterfield just because I hate their stadium, so I'd rather not go there.
What's wrong with Chesterfield's ground?
I really don't like it.
I think it's fine.
It's just one of those, like flat pack build.
Yeah,
characterless
does the job.
Ones for me.
That's fine to me.
Yeah, it does the job. That's it. It's not got character about it for me.
I don't think we can.
It's the exact same stadium as Shrewsbury.
I don't think we can be talking about other people's stadiums.
You're heading to Dorking Wanderers next season,
no,
lads.
I mean, ours is shit, but at least it's got a bit of character about it. I like Grimsby,
what character is in that? At Boundary Park?
We have one of the nicest stands.
The nicest stand is closed.
Okay, closed. You know what? Don't come for me as an Oldham fan. I've got enough problems to deal with. All right. I am our biggest critic.
Oh, I don't think you're the biggest. Is that you? No, that's it. In terms of my own playoff thoughts, I quite like it to be Solihull. I like seeing some newcomers come into the EFL every year, but I think it'll be Grimsby, because Grimsby have scored 119th minutes in each of their 2 playoff games so far. So regardless who's winning today out of Solihull or Chesterfield, they're losing in the last minute to Grimsby down in London next weekend. So I think it will be Grimsby would be my pick, yeah. And it'd be great to see Grimsby bounce back, because it does not happen often from the National League. That'd be very impressive to them to come back after immediately going down the season before. A couple of questions actually from Scott Mottram. There was one about our predictions to Mark Kennedy at Lincoln. We've discussed him already. We're feeling quite good about that. A follow-up one from him, though, was, should we once again reintroduce some sort of spending cap into our leagues?
So, I thought about this, and I think I answered differently the last time I was asked this question on here. I think we were asked it last season. And I'm going to say no, but with a caveat. I think we should properly enforce and strengthen the current rules, which is based on a percentage of income. Just because I'm not convinced that take the League One season just gone. Should Accrington, who had an average attendance of just shy of 2,800, have the same spending capability as Sunderland, who are attracting over 30,000 fans on average? I think it's difficult to justify that, but I think we need to be wary of clubs relying heavily on directors' loans that can come back to bite them, and to be wary of things like Salford, where they're spending.
Yeah, I think it's important we just don't get clubs spending more than their means.
Yes, I think that's the important thing. So I think we need to carefully think about how owners inject money into the clubs, and I think we need to carefully think about what's fair. I don't think having a flat threshold of saying, clubs can spend £5 million a season or whatever you want to make it. I think it should be based on a percentage of income, which is effectively what we have now, but it needs tightening up a bit.
Yeah, question from Jack here. Early predictions to who will have the best transfer window in both leagues. I mean, your client Steve Evans has been busy at Stevenage, David.
He has been very busy poaching from his old club Gillingham as well.
Yeah, what do you think about Chapman, actually? I want to ask you about that.
I'm not... I mean, to be fair, the reason why, from our perspective, the reason why he was supposed to be leaving, he was supposed to be travelling back towards the north to be with his family, but he hasn't got very far and then must have stopped to Stevenage along the way.
It is north of Gillingham, isn't it, I suppose?
Well, it's north of Gillingham, yes, but it's not many places are south of Gillingham.
You wait till Dane Oliver goes there, then you're really going to lose it.
Oh, well, do you know what? That's not the end of the world. Because I'd imagine he'll be gone anyway. He said he was going, so he is going. But I'd rather have kept Chapman, if I'm honest. But I was expecting, if anything, for him to go to a League One side, not arguably a worse off League Two side. I'm a bit astounded on that part. I mean, sure, it is a bit more north than Gillingham, but there's not many places that aren't. I was probably more expecting him to go much higher up the country, but
who wouldn't want to live in Stevenage though?
Well, fair enough, but yeah, look, it's a good piece of recruitment on Steve Evans' behalf, and I imagine that's why he's gone there, because of the familiarity of the manager. But on the flip side, my argument would be he's gone with a manager that had him on the bench for pretty much his entire time that he was there. Granted, that was behind Jamie Cumming, and fair enough on that respect. But a manager that kind of had him on the bench the whole time and didn't really give him a look in. So I would be, if I was Chapman, I would be a little bit dubious. But
I mean, Stevenage need players at the moment, so he's probably got a good chance of starting.
So did Gillingham, quite frankly. I don't think that.
Should we say the best predictions for the transfer window is Gillingham, because they're going to get some players in? Should we go with that?
They're going to sign a player.
You could say that literally every season when we have to rebuild every year.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on some transfer windows, Aaron?
The only just touching on Stevenage a little bit as well. The only thing that impresses me so far is it was quite clear last season that they needed experienced heads, and that's certainly what they've got at the minute. I think I read something that really impressed me, that the signings that they've made so far have 5 combined promotions between them from League Two, and to me that's important. And like, for instance, the Danny Rose, for me, I think is quality, absolutely quality at this division. I think he will score goals very consistently. And yeah, so I think they'll have a strong window, but I'm trying to think. I think I don't know.
I quite like the idea. I think MK Dons are going to have to rebuild again after the season they've had. You're probably going to see Twine and Darling move on. Quite excited to see them. I quite like another idea of what Bolton could grow their squad as well.
Yeah, I'm feeling
quite bullish about Bolton at the start of the season.
I think they'll have a good season.
Yeah.
I'm excited for them, certainly. Any others come to mind?
Salford tend to sign well. It's not to say that they use their players well, but they tend to have exciting transfer
How many more
windows.
wingers can they get that can cross to Matt Smith? That's what you need to ask. Ashley Hunter is available, and I'm very excited to see who picks up him, because there's a very nice winger in there, whoever gets him.
Yeah.
Yeah, one from Strictly Plymouth. Who are your 3 players to watch out for in League 1 next year? I'll add League 2 into that as well, actually. Any players you can think of who could be starting material next year?
It's a tough one because, I've got a couple of players in here that may well, even by the time this comes out...
Yeah, this is the problem, isn't it? We're trying to predict the transfer window.
I've said Scott Twine of MK Dons, but I think he'll be up a division. I know there's a couple of Premier League clubs, and I think it's Nottingham Forest have been particularly sniffing around him. I've been impressed with Matty Taylor for the last couple of seasons at Oxford, and Matt J coming up with Exeter.
Yeah, good picks there. David, Aaron?
I think I'd be anxious to make a decision at this point. For me, I'm a
you
bit
could take Carl
hesitant.
Dempsey, it's fine.
I could, but I don't think so. I will say that I don't think so. I mean, I think there's a very solid player in Ben Thompson, depending on where he ends up as well.
I agree with that, yeah.
I'm not sure whether he'll go back to the Championship or whether he'll go to a League One outfit, or maybe in some sort of miracle sense we could convince him to play in League Two. But that's a very, very long shot.
I'm going to throw my bias out and go with Kane Hemmings at Tranmere at a full season. He was excellent in just the second half of the season, really, and a little bit of a partnership with him. Some talk that Davis Killer Dunn might be heading to Tranmere to play behind him. That'd be quite a good combo.
I've heard him heavily linked with Tranmere. I also heard a suggestion of Accrington as well.
Ooh.
But I think Tranmere are the ones that he'll probably go to.
Yeah, last I heard, I think it's just a case of when he gets announced as a Tranmere player, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, one final one that I'm going to add into this. We talked about the Thorties coming up from League 2, Stockport coming up from the National League. We talked about the sides promoted from League 1 as well, the relegated to League 1 as well. What do we think about the 3 coming down from the Championship guys? Barnsley, Peterborough United and Derby County.
Well,
entering into a really tough division. I agree. Derby's a really interesting one here, isn't it?
Because they've got new owners now. I think several of the players are staying on. And actually, if you knock off the points deduction, they sort of finished 17th in the Championship or something like that last year. I think Wayne Rooney's planning on staying on, if I'm not mistaken. So I think there they've got... I'm still yet to be fully convinced on Rooney, but I think he's a solid manager.
My opinion on Rooney really changed last season. I think the season before I kind of didn't get what he was about, but last year, the spirit in that Derby camp could get them very far this season. It's incredible.
He managed the issues well, but I still want to see a sort of unaffected season, if you like, to really be convinced by him. But I think he's solid. They've got a bit of money in now with this new owner, and keeping some of their good players, I think could be interesting for them.
I think in terms of structures already there, I really like the Peterborough owner. I like how I know he's got a YouTube channel, and I like how always open and transparent he is with how he does his business and stuff. And I think there's a good structure in place at Peterborough there to kind of give them the sort of resources that they need to obviously be able to get back through again eventually. So I think Peterborough will do the best.
What about Barnsley, David? They've still got a manager yet to a point. There's been discussions about who that could be.
Yeah,
but generally, they seem to be one of the ones up towards the top of League One generally when they're down there, don't they?
Well, they had a really solid season last year, if I'm not mistaken, when they were hitting the playoffs in the Championship. So I think there's definitely potential in this team. And I think, again, I'm going to be it's a bit of a cop-out, really, but I think this is another one that I'll reserve my judgment until the manager...
predict them now. Do it now. Call them now. Do it.
Just pick one.
Pick a position, and we'll hold you to it. Pick a prediction now. We'll there now.
I just think the managerial appointment is going to be obviously massively key within this.
Hasselbank's been in the mix for that, and it's so funny, honestly. There's no way Hasselbank goes there.
Dave would make a fantastic politician.
He really would. I'm going to reserve my judgment till everything's happened.
I'm waiting for the Sue Gray report.
I just feel like they'll do well. But I feel like all three of those teams, I think as we learnt last year, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're coming down and the pedigree you come with. It's very much the onus is on obviously how you then adapt to a new league and a new system. And I think a couple of these clubs are going to need to lose or probably will lose some players and are probably going to need to bring down their costs anyway. So I think that's going to be very key into determining how they do next season. But I wouldn't be completely surprised if the three of them were in around the playoffs and automatics.
Okay, I've got one final question to you. I'm going to put you on the spot here, and this applies to all three of you, and I'll include myself as well. What away trip are you most looking forward to with your club next season?
So this is including Oldham, yeah?
Yeah, includes Oldham in the National League.
I need the National League table back up.
I mean, it's a very southern division, to be fair.
I'll put mine out first, give you a bit of time to think. I'm quite looking forward to going down to Exeter. It's been a long time since we've had Exeter in the third tier now. I think it was over a decade they've been waiting to get out of the fourth tier. Really good for them. I like the trips down to Devon. I've always enjoyed the trip down to Plymouth Argyle. Exeter's somewhere I've not had a great deal of experience with St James Park. I'm quite looking forward to going and doing that, certainly.
It's a fantastic stadium.
I'm looking forward to going to Exeter, definitely. I hope that's not Tuesday night. I really hope that's a weekend game, because I want to make it.
I've been once, and it was when Pete Wild was our manager, and we had sort of like an outside chance of making the League Two playoffs. It was a real outside one, but we took a decent following down there.
Do you mean they were 13th rather than 18th?
I think we were sort of 10th at this point. It was one of those where if we got a couple of wins and Exeter and Newport slipped up, we might have had a chance. But they've got that fantastic stand behind the goal, which I think is the largest standing terrace.
It is a big terrace, yeah. I'm looking forward to
England. Yeah, I think for mine in the National League, I'm quite looking forward to Wrexham because they're one of the sort of old school football league clubs that I've yet to visit. Torquay, depending on the time of year, I'd quite like to do. I'd quite like to make that into a bit of a long weekend and have a holiday down in Devon for that one. I think they're the two that are standing out for me.
Halifax is a local one for you lot now, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and the York are coming up, which...
When did you play Altrincham last? Because that must have been a while.
Have we ever played Altrincham? I don't know. I really don't know, to be honest. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Halifax and York. I've never been to either of those, and I live in Leeds, so they're reasonably local for me.
Aaron?
I mean, without trying to sound disrespectful, none of the list is filling me with excitement as such.
But yeah, but there's some good historical clubs down there. To be fair.
If I had to pick, I would say I would actually go for maybe Maidenhead. I think, because I see a lot of I think it's quite a nice area, and I see a lot of the way they do things on social media, and they have a really good social media following and a really good fan base, it seems. So I think that'll be quite exciting. So yeah,
I've got a friend that lives in Marlow near Maidenhead, so that'll be a good one for me as well, because I can.
You've got contacts all over the world, you have, haven't you?
Yeah.
David, anyone in League Two you're excited to go back with Gills?
I mean, firstly, I'm a bit hurt that neither one of them mentioned Maidstone down my neck of the woods, but
there's a reason for that, Dave.
To be fair, there's quite a few relatively local ones here that I'm not entirely opposed of. Obviously, AFC Wimbledon coming down. I haven't visited the new Plough Lane yet, so I'm intrigued by that proposition, which isn't particularly far away. Crawley Town could be a nice away day for me, Well, who else could be a nice away day? I'm thinking, Colchester's not that far away from me either.
Is this what matters to you? Location more than actual stadium?
You should try and get...
What about Barrow? What about Hartlepool?
I don't mind
the country.
But for me, it's more just being able to fit everything around the finances of work and stuff. So I'm trying to look.
It isn't too far from you either, is it? Oh, that's League One, of course.
Oh, Chris.
No, Ipswich is not too far away, but to be honest...
Sutton United, David, into London?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I think I'd venture that way too. I'd probably have a look at a couple of the National League games as well and make my way towards Maidstone, probably especially for the Oldham game, just out of pure curiosity and the ability to see Aaron and Chris there as well. Maybe a whole D3D4 National League away day.
I am not going down to Kent for you lot. I'm not doing it.
Well, you can be left out.
You can come to Solihull, lads. We'll do that
We
instead.
didn't want you anyway.
So would that be your pick then? One of the local boys.
Yeah, I think so. I think just in terms of, a day trip weekend, potentially a weekend away. A couple of these could be nice for a weekend away. I wouldn't actually mind going to Salford, going towards Manchester for a weekend or something. That wouldn't be particularly bad.
Stadium, though.
Yeah, but then so is Oldham, so.
Oh. But people say this about Oldham. I don't think Oldham's a bad stadium, though. It needs some.
It needs a lick of paint. I'll tell you that.
It needs a lot of love and care, but there's a lot of history in it.
It also needs all its stands open as well.
It's just got holes everywhere.
To be quite honest,
this is the
boys,
thing.
I don't think any of us are particularly placed to comment on any of the stadiums. I certainly am not, based on Priestfield. So.
Well, because I never judge stadiums based on like how well looked after they are, because Oldham always comes bottom of that because we've got structural issues that need solving. But I always like stadiums with a bit of history about them. So Bradford's a really good example, actually, where you can see the stand they built in the 4th division, the small one. In the second up, they developed that in the 3rd division, and then so on to that massive one that was built when they were in the Premier League or with Premier League money.
Bradford's really funny because it's just so contrast, isn't it? When you're in those small stands, you've got that giant one opposite you.
And this is what I like about Oldham is you've got the main stand, which was built back in the early 1900s. You've got the Chaddy End, which is an old stand. I think it was developed in the 80s and it had a roof put on since then. And then you've got the Rochdale Road End, which we built when we were. I think we built it going up to the 1st division. We might have still been 2nd division when we built it. And then you've got the new stand, which has it's got the various issues, but it's a nice looking stand. And that was built with FA Cup money from a few years ago, alongside some grants and various complex issues.
I know it's closed, but are they still allowed to use the facilities in it? Because there's a gym in the top floor, isn't there?
They're privately owned.
Okay.
I would need to dedicate an entire podcast to discuss the North Stand.
We could.
If people listening are interested, I wrote an article a couple of years ago called Fan-led Group Announce Plans for Oldham's North Stand or Oldham's Boundary Park. That the details in that are effectively unchanged, just that the Fan-led Group now also own the gym. So if people are interested, go and look for that article.
Excellent. With that, I will wrap up this podcast and indeed this season. Boys, thank you. It's been, well, it's not been the best seasons personally, has it? if we're being truthful. David, you've had, the D3D4 curse of debut seasons has certainly hit you quite hard. Likewise for Aaron, to be honest, even though you came in a bit later on. I do want to give a shout out to James, who got this all going so many years ago. Chris, yourself as well, has been involved for so many years. I have really been honoured to take on this responsibility as podcast host. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to talk to you every week.
You've done a fantastic job, Ed.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Well done, mate.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you again. We'll be back. Look, the season begins last week of July. We will get the 1 to 24s out because you will have listening to them. Aaron is taking sole responsibility for how they end up. Anything you have to hear, you can hear from him because he thinks he's such a master with his predictions on the playoffs. So we're going to put him to the test now with proper league predictions. And I've told him he needs 100% accuracy as well because he has a reputation to live up to.
Aaron Diskin 1 on Twitter if you want to.
Absolutely, yeah. Get that all over to him.
Not only the 1 to 24, but the subsequent playoff race needs to be predicted as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want this by next week.
Your assignment.
Pressure makes diamonds, boys. Pressure makes diamonds.
Interesting saying. Okay, we'll go with that. Thank you very much for listening to this season. We hope you're enjoying. We look forward to seeing you again for the 22-23 season. Until then, goodbye.